Hello world, and welcome back. In this video we're going to discuss mass modeling in toposolids. Mass modeling is really useful when you're trying to do things that maybe aren't necessarily orthogonal or have complex spatial realities or spatial geometries. And the example we're going to use is a project I've been taking freeform modeling through, is Mies van der Rohe's Barcelona Pavilion. So I'm not going to do anything super crazy. It's mostly orthogonal geometry, but I'm going to show you how it's used, and then you can explore its more complicated use later. So let's jump right into that. The first we're going to start with the toposolids, not the mass modeling. So I can explain how the new site geometry works in Revit. And again, it's way more complicated, way more robust than I'm going to show you. I'm going to give you a very simple example, but I wanted to show you how it works and how to move forward with it. All right, so in the site plan, notice in my browser I'm in the site plan, not the architectural plan. I'm going to go to the Mass and Site tool using Toposolid and then create from scratch. And I'm going to, save my project first because I'm not good at that. And then I'm going to draw a simple rectangle and make it something like that. All right, so you'll see the big blue square because it's highlighted right now. And notice that there are choices to modify elements, add points, add split lines, etc. So the first thing I'm going to do actually is to add a split line. So I'm going to take this geometry right along the edge here and then pull it all the way over. Actually, let me say it differently. Let me try that one more time. There we go. Okay, so now I have a full split. Now, when I look at this thing in 3D, the first thing you should notice is that because of the way I built Barcelona Pavilion, it's occupying right at zero level or floor plan level, right? And so that's why there's a little bit of an overlap there. So I actually need to move that down, and I think that the Barcelona Pavilion plinth, or the base of it, is about 3 feet. So I'm going to try that to annotate that first, so that we understand where that actually is. I do that by finishing or escaping out of the Toposolid selection set, go to annotate, and then I'm going to use this tool called spot elevation. I want to choose, actually I need to be in wireframe, I think. Yeah, there we go. So spot elevation, I'm going to choose the base, and that's going to tell me that the bottom of that plinth, which is the base for the Barcelona Pavilion, is at 3 feet. And I know that it may not be 3 feet in real life. I was just using that as an example. Okay, so now that I have that selected again, I'm going to put it under the level. Since level 1 is where I started drawing and I extruded down for the base, I'm going to move the Toposolid down. So minus 3 feet, hit enter, and let's see what that looks like in hidden line. That looks pretty good. I don't think I'm covering anything right now, so I think I'm in good shape. Okay, now when I have this selected, I am going to show you how to manipulate the heights of things. So we're going to do this modify sub-elements. I'm going to choose this line, which says -3 feet. I'm actually going to put that at 6 feet. And what should happen is from that split line, it's going to grow up by 6 feet. And I think that happened accurately. And I'm going to just pan around to make sure that's what happened. And it looks like that is what happened. So that's great. That worked out the way I wanted it to. But as you can tell, as you can see, I'm now the ground is starting to come through the building. Actually, I'm going to put that up a little higher to exaggerate that point. So let me select this one more time, modify, put that up at 8 feet. Okay, so now you see how the ground is coming through the building. I'm going to turn on a shaded view, specifically this, so you can see where the green is cutting through. Now, obviously, you can't have the site, and in real life, you would excavate the footprint of the building. So we're going to go ahead and do that very, very quickly. And something I just realized is when I modeled this, I modeled it with a split line at the edge. And probably what I should have done is modeled the split line here, because in real life, the grade is fairly flat until you get to that point. So I'm going to go back to the site plan and see how difficult it is to add a new split line. So select this guy and add split line. I'm going to pick one. I think it's right there. Come all the way over, and then that's it. Now go back to 3D, select this guy. I'm going to modify this line at -3 feet, and that changed the topography moving up, but more importantly, it flattened out that bit, which is what I really wanted it to do. So I think that worked out brilliantly, so thank you for that. Thank myself for that, I guess. All right, so in real life, you would excavate this site, and so we do that a couple different ways. And I'm going to show you what I think is probably the easiest way. And so using the massing and site tool, actually, no, I'm going to do it this way. Using the component model in place tool, I'm just going to create a void, and it's called, I'll use Toposolid as an example, but I'm going to create a void form, so void extrusion, and I'm going to use the pick tool and hover over one edge of the plinth, tab once, tab again, and it should select every surface of that slab, and it should create a void form using that. I'm actually going to change my extrusion end to be 5 feet and start to be negative, let's say 2.5 feet. Okay, so 2.5 feet, and hit OK. And what happened, or what should be happening, is it's cutting through just about where I wanted it to, but it's not actually cutting anything because this void isn't um, connected to that site just yet. So now we're going to use a Boolean operation, or what REVIT calls a cut geometry. So we're going to select the cut geometry. We're going to select the solid because that's the thing we want to keep. We're going to select the void because that's the thing we want to get rid of, and we hit finish model. And now what you see is just like you would do it in real life. We've digitally excavated the ground, and we have this showing us that we've in fact carved into the ground. So that is a really, really simple topo solid and how you might manipulate that. The other thing you can do is, since this space right now is just one big object, there's a couple ways of changing this topo solid so you can create different materialities. So I'm going to hit subdivide, and I'm going to draw this line from here to there and hit OK. Actually, sorry, I think I have to make it a rectangle. I'm going to go back to the site plan and make it a rectangle from here to there. Hit OK. Now, when I look at that thing back in 3D, you'll realize that it isn't part of the topo solid anymore. It's actually a separate piece, and I can change the materiality and makeup of that solid to concrete, and now I have a material difference between those two things without really doing anything else. So that's I think, a really powerful tool, and it looks like it should be happening here too. So I'm going to go back here because I think there's a sidewalk here. So I'm going to do it one more time. Subdivide, rectangle. I'm going to choose this edge and try to line it up with, actually, I'm going to use the align tool to line it up with that surface and hit OK. And now if I look at that thing in 3D, select that guy, change that to concrete, I now have, actually this could probably be asphalt, right? Asphalt, there we go. So now we have a roadway, and then we have a sidewalk, and then we have the rest of the building. So that's a very, very quick example of how to use topo solids. Now, I know you're going to come for me and say, yeah, but in the floor plan, there's actually stairs that go out the back. Yeah, okay, we can do that too if you'd like, but it's just the same process of creating a void form, removing it from, or sorry, doing a cut Boolean operation from the mass. So you're not learning anything new, but if I wanted to be true and faithful in the way I represented it, yes, I would put the stairs in the back that go up the slope. But that's not important for today. So coming back to this guy, or the model, I should say, what I'd like to talk about part 2 of this lesson or this video, is to talk about massings. And so what you should know is that if you ever visit the Barcelona webpage for the Barcelona Pavilion, it's you just type in Mies BCN in Google, and you will get this web page. And I think I've talked about this in previous videos, and then choose the pavilion. What you'll find is a lot of documentation, specifically in the gallery, about what this thing looks like and how it's organized, and it's really well done, including big image references, image map references, some furniture. There's I think her name is Dawn, the statue in the back corner. So there's some material references I mentioned, and the travertine and how this thing works. There are the columns and the drapes, and so you're seeing the pebbles in the reflecting pond. But it's not a photo essay, so I'm going to stop talking about the pictures. What I was trying to get at is that you can understand a lot about the geometry of the architecture, and more specifically about the materiality. And what you should be noticing is that there are really, I think, 3 different kinds of marble. And marble may not be the right word. I think this surface and all the bounding walls are in fact travertine. I'm really confident about that. I think the orange bit is onyx, and then this color, I'm not entirely sure, but if I were to go to the Learn tab, I think it does tell you somewhere about the materiality, and maybe it is somewhere in the gallery. I just don't remember where it is, but somewhere that tells you what kind of materials there are, and how they're used, etc. But for our purposes, what I wanted to show you was in fact that they are a tile wall, a tile floor, a tile. Everything is tile, right? Or slabs of stone. And so our walls in our REVIT model don't really look like that. Our walls look solid. So how would you build that? And if you use the architecture tab in wall, there isn't anything really out of box, right? These things are solid. Bricks, maybe if you change the size of the brick, generic, that's not give you the lines that you want to use. I'm going to argue to you that we should be using a curtain wall, specifically a no grid curtain wall, and I'm going to explain that here in a second. So because the curtain wall has thickness, I'm sorry, does not have a lot of thickness. It has the what do you call it, the panel width or panel dimension, but no real thickness beyond that. This would be really complicated because you'd have to draw 2 curtain walls and how they connect together and all that stuff. And I think there's probably an easier way, or I believe there's an easier way to do it, and that's what I'm going to show you right now. So I'm going to come back here. I'm going to turn on hidden line, and I am going to model these walls, everything in blue. So I'm going to isolate them, and then I'm going to model these things using a mass tool, and it'll make a whole lot more sense here in a second. So using the mass tab, I'm going to do a model in place, or sorry, in place mass, right? And then I'm going to create some geometries around these walls. So the first thing I'm going to do is, just like I would have done, is just start drawing rectangles. That's how I did it before. But since I already have Revit native line work, I'm going to use the pick tool because that should make my life a lot faster. And I'm going to hover over one edge, hit tab. Oh, it's not letting me do that actually. I'm not quite sure what it is. It should be letting me Okay, so now it is. Let me tab, but for some reason it's not selecting all connecting surfaces. Let me try it in 3D. Maybe that makes a difference. Yeah, it's not letting me do that. That's really interesting. All right, well, that's fine. Then we just draw it the way we would have drawn it. So we're going to use rectangles. Actually, we can still use the pick tool. We just have to be more deliberate, I guess, about the things that I'm picking versus trying to have it do it for us. Okay, now what you'll notice is that nothing was selected, or sorry, nothing is showing up as different because it's just lines. And those lines have to create a closed polygon that form a geometry. Now, I'm not entirely sure this is closed, so I'm going to just try to clean these edges up a little bit just to make sure that they're closed. And then when I highlight them again using the enclosing window, I should see all the corners highlighted, which I do. So now I think I'm good. Okay, this is way better done in 3D. So I'm going to show you, once you have your line work selected, the thing you're going to extrude, then you create a solid form. And then there is our first mass. Now, the thing I want to point out, one of the things I want to point out, is that it is translucent. And my favorite analogy when I share this with students is this is a lot like a balloon in paper mache. If you've ever done a paper mache head, what you do, at least the way I was taught to do it, is you blow up the balloon and then you um, apply newspaper or some kind of paper that's been dipped in glue around the balloon. And then when it hardens, you pop the balloon, and what's left is the shell, which is the paper mache face or mask or head, right? So what we're doing is a digital version of that. At least that's the analogy I like to think of. And so that's what you're seeing is this translucent bit. So now normally I would add all the other walls, but for right now, just so I can explain how this process is going to work, I'm just going to do this one, and then we'll be done with at least this wall. Okay, so I finished the mass and you can see it there, but because the other wall is still there, I need to get rid of it. So I'm going to highlight that wall just by hovering over it, and I can see it connected. I'm going to edit in place because I want to keep all the other ones. I'm going to delete that one because I modeled, if you remember correctly, when I modeled, if you saw the previous videos, you saw that I made one component with multiple extrusions in it. And so I've just removed that single extrusion, and now you have these walls remain within that component, but that wall is gone, right? So I've completed that edit, and now I have just my mass and nothing else. The first thing I want to do is make sure it's the right height, so I'm going to use my favorite, which is the Align tool. I'm going to select the top of this wall, and again, I'm going to use Tab to make sure I'm getting the top surface. And then I'm going to align that to the top of the mass, and the mass comes down. Now, here is the tricky part. So the mass was easy, right? It's just a simple extrusion like we did before. I showed you a different way of doing it in using the pick tool, but now we need to create the travertine wall. Now, I'm going to go back to Mies, and I want to see if I can find, I think there's a photo of the exterior. This one, maybe there's a better one. Okay, now if I believe that these walls are 9 feet thick, or sorry, tall, then that makes each one of these panels 3 feet tall, right? So 3 panels in 9 feet, 3 feet each. And then they look to be about maybe 9 feet wide. I don't know if that's entirely true. So let's say maybe 6 feet. It looks like a 2 to 3 proportion. So, so this is a 3 foot tall by 6 feet wide travertine panel. Okay, so let's come back to Revit, and here's why that matters. I'm going to go to the Architecture tab. I'm going to choose Wall, and where it says Curtain Wall, no grid, because remember I believe this is a curtain wall. I'm going to choose Edit Type. Duplicate, this is very important because I don't want to edit the ones that we already created. Duplicate, and I'm going to call it travertine wall. Okay, so I've created a new type. The curtain panel will not be glazed, it will be solid. And we're actually going to change that here in a second, but for right now, let's leave it solid. Now here's where it's important. The layout is, in fact, a fixed distance. So we know the vertical grid is every 6 feet. And I always get this backwards, so we might have to come back and change this. And then the horizontal grid, so yep, the horizontal grid is 3 feet, right? And then there are no mullions, at least right now. I'm going to show you how we get the, when it renders, how we show grout lines. But for right now, there's no mullions. So it's none, make sure all those things are none. And then we're going to hit OK and OK and apply. All right, excuse me for coughing. Now, I don't really worry. We're not going to actually draw anything here. We're just creating the new wall type. The top constraint doesn't matter, and we'll explain why here in a second. This justification does, however. I want that to be centered in both directions, vertical and horizontal, and hit apply. Okay, so that will be my basis. Now I'm going to go back to, actually, make this easier. I'm going to isolate the mass so we're not seeing all the other stuff. And then I'm going to type in ZE for zoom extents, and now it's just the mass. And now I'm going to use the massing tool and then wall. Now notice that I can choose any wall I want. It doesn't have to be the one I just created, but I'm going to use the travertine wall. And because I'm using the mass wall tool, I can pick faces versus drawing something. So I'm going to do the pick faces. This is the paper mache part, right? And again, the thing I love about Revit is if you hover over something, it gives you an idea of what you're trying to do. So we're going to pick face and then select that one, select that one, select that one, that one, that one. So I'm selecting all the inside faces and all the outside faces, and it looks like that worked. I'm going to select the end face and the end face, and I think we have our travertine wall, right? Looks pretty good, I think. I think I got the panel dimensions right. That looks pretty good. So I got the horizontal grid at 3 feet apart. I got the vertical grid at 6 feet apart. I think I got it right, but I am noticing something funky. Notice these corners. Why is it doing that, right? So if I go to the family, and I'm going to select the family real quick. If I go to that wall and I hit edit type, what's it telling me? We know it's exterior. We know it's a solid panel. We know the vertical grid is continuous. That doesn't really matter without the mullions. The fixed distance is right. The mullion types don't matter for right now. So what's wrong? The only thing left I can look at is the panel, right? So this is the first time I think I'm introducing to you the notion of family edits within Revit. So I'm going to scroll down in the project browser. I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to find families. That's where all my families live. And I'm going to look at curtain panels because that's what these are. It's a curtain wall panel. And then you should see one called System Panel Solid. Now, again, do not edit the thing. Instead, create a duplicate. So I'm going to right click, type properties, duplicate, and I'm going to call it travertine. Again, travertine panel if I wanted to be accurate. I don't think there's an offset, so that should be 0. And the thickness is, well, gosh, I'm not quite sure what the thickness is. Let's say it's 5/8 of an inch, right? So I'm going to make that 5/8 of an inch with 0 offset. The material, if we want to talk about materials, we can do that, but for the purposes of, and I think that's a different video, truthfully, but for the purposes of today, we're going to leave material just default and hit apply and OK. Now, notice nothing in the model changed. Why? Because I created a new panel, and the one that's still associated with that family is solid. So if I select that family one more time, I'm going to hit edit type, and I'm going to change my system panel from solid to travertine panel. When I hit apply, it'll affect all this family wall, travertine walls, without having to edit any of them. So hit apply, hit OK, and man, that looks good. Sorry for the editorial. But yeah, that looks good. Now, you're like, well, wait, it went from white to purple. Why is that? Because I still have my mass there. Now, I can visibility graphic override the mass, or this is one of the nice tools in this ribbon. I can simply turn off the mass, on, off, like that. And then there we go. Now you're probably going to notice, wait a minute, I don't have a top. There's no top on that wall. Yeah, you're exactly right. So I'm going to turn mass back on, and I'm going to try something. I don't know if it's going to work, but I'm trying something. Wall, faces, and it won't, I don't think, yeah, it's going to tell me you can't, I think what it's telling me is if that said walls can't overlap, that's fine. But what I think what it's going to tell me is you can't add a wall, because that's a vertical element, to a horizontal surface. So now what do I do? Okay, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to use curtain system, and instead of the 5x10 system, I'm going to create one called, you guessed it, travertine wall. Okay, did I spell that right? Yeah, I did. Okay, fixed distance grid, I know it's 3x6, so 3 feet, 6 feet. The curtain panel is a travertine panel, which we know about. Hit OK. And now I can select that surface, and it selected all of it, and create system. Uh-oh, what happened? I got the system wrong, or I got the dimensions wrong. Oh no, it looks like it's all right. I don't know why it's showing up that way. So let's try something. I'm going to use the align tool. I'm going to pick this grid and align it with that segment. Actually, it's not going to let me do that, is it? Try this grid, align it with that segment. Yeah, it's not letting me do that. All right, so I've hit a roadblock. I'm not quite sure how to fix that. Oh, wait a minute. It's right down here. It's just weird when it turns the corner. Huh. Maybe I'm going to justify center and center, hit apply, and that made all of them wrong because it is a plan XY and not a vertical XY. Does that make sense? So what I'm going to do now is change this to 6 feet for that system and change it one more time. I'm just trying to fix it. Change it one more time. If I can select it. I want the curtain system. I guess this is a good time to talk about this. I'm hovering over something and I'm tabbing, but because the mass is purple and when you select something it turns blue, you can't really see, or I'm having a hard time seeing what I'm selecting. If you look in the bottom corner down here, it's telling me what I have selected or what's highlighted. So right now it's telling me that curtain systems travertine wall is selected or is highlighted. If I select it, one left click, it's now editable. I'm going to hit edit. Travertine, and then change it to beginning and beginning. And that lines up nicely. It doesn't line up there. And I think I'm just going to have to live with that because I don't know how to fix that in this moment. So I'd have to do some research. But under massing insight, turn the mass off. And then we have a compelling travertine wall, at least from the bird's eye, or sorry, the human eye view, we have a compelling travertine wall. We don't have, obviously, from the bird's eye, and I'd have to figure that out. But now let's look quickly here. I don't think, this is not an excuse because I need to figure this out, but I don't think we have any photos of the top of that wall. And the reason why I'm asking is I'm not entirely sure it's travertine. Honestly, that would be a waste of material. It would probably be some sort of coping cap. When you build walls that have no roof above them, you put a coping cap on top of it, and I suspect that's what it is. Again, it would be a waste of travertine. So I think it's okay that I didn't get the top of the wall to be travertine, but that's that again. That's not an excuse. That's just I don't know how to fix that right now. Okay. So now what I would do is I would ask all of you to, or I would encourage you to do that for all of these systems. But I'm going to show you, so that's the massing option. And then I'm going to show you how to do the same thing, but just using out-of-box walls, windows, and doors. Now, so let's go here, and I'm going to recreate these geometries using out-of-box walls, windows, and doors, and you can see why I wanted to do it the other way. So go to architecture, go to wall, and go to travertine wall, and I'm going to choose pick lines. I'm going to pick that wall, and it showed up there, right? Showed up there, showed up there. Let's see, there, there, there. And now I have to go on every wall and the ends to get this thing to show up correctly. Oh, that didn't show up correctly. So that's not good. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I think it's worth the extra step of doing the mass model and applying them using the face command versus using the wall tool and the pick. But here's the ultimate reason why that's a true statement. Okay, so I'm going to go back, and remember there is an there's a wall under here. I think it's called walls. Okay, so that's the things in blue, right? If I delete those and we look at this thing in plan, you will see there's no end caps and there's a gap, which is what we have in reality, right? When we look at the floor plan, reset those values and turn back to hidden line. In truth, it is a cavity, right? We have tubular steel studs or columns actually holding up these stone walls. And then there's a cavity and it's just a thin veneer of stone. So we're modeling it the way they would build it. But we're also doing that with the mass tool here, right? So the mass tool is right also, although you can't see it because of this. So the mask tool is also a thin veneer with a void. So you're probably like, well, what's the difference? Here's the difference, right? If I were to look at this thing in 3D, and I wanted to add a window to this wall, right, or an opening, it will not let me because it is a curtain wall. Now I can put a door or window or anything in a wall, but not a curtain wall. I can't do that, right? But so I'm going to undo a bunch of things. I'm going to undo all of these, and to make that point. Okay. So now if I want to put a window in this wall, I can do that, and then it cuts all the way through, and there's your window. Good. All right. But it doesn't look like the travertine wall. If I want to put a window in this wall, which I made with a mass, right? I'm going to turn mass back on, and then I'm going to select just the mass. And the reason I'm talking about a window is if you look at all the information for Mies, the Barcelona Pavilion, you should see at some point. Let's see if I can find a picture of it. In the back of the building, there is in fact windows that face that slope and let light in. And I'm seeing if I could find, I don't think this is going to show us. Sorry, I know that they're there. I've seen the drawings. I just don't see a photograph of it to prove my point. There's the stairs going up the slope, right? So you can see those. I thought for sure there's a photo of the back of this thing where you could see that window. Ah, there we go. There's a window right there, and then there's another one back there. So you can see the terrain. Actually, it's a lot flatter. The slope doesn't start until beyond, but that's okay. But you see that window right there? We can't add that window in using the curtain wall function, or we could do if it was a regular wall, but then we wouldn't have those beautiful sight lines. So what do we do? How do we get that? Well, this is what makes the mass tool really, really special, at least in my opinion. All right, so I'm going to select the mass, or try to mass. I'm going to highlight that, or isolate, I should say, that element. And then I'm going to open this thing and edit place. Now, this acts like any extrusion, any typical geometry extrusion. And what that means is I can create a new shape and create a Boolean operation, right? So I'm going to first, and this is super important when doing extrusions in Revit, you must first choose the plane at which you're extruding on or from. In this case, I'm going to draw a rectangle on a vertical surface, so I need to choose that plane. So I'm going to say set work plane, and I'm going to highlight this surface. And now that I have that, when I draw my rectangle, I'm drawing on that surface. And I didn't measure this. I don't know if this is the right values or not. And then you can change the shape of it, of course. I don't want to do that, so I'm gonna highlight just that line and then tap down. Okay, so let's say that's what I want, right? I'm gonna select that rectangle, and then I'm gonna create a void form, which should cut through the mass, which it did. And now I have a hole, right? Not too complicated. I've shown you that already. No big deal, right? Now, when I finish that mass and I go to reset, you're going to say, well, wait a minute, Mike, I'm going to turn the roofs off so you can see this clearly. Roofs, so I'm in visibility graphics, I'm selecting roofs, I'm turning that family off, and then I go back to an ISO view and zoom in. Now I don't see my hole, right? It's not there. If I select this vertical wall that we applied to that mass, notice that there's an option up here that says update to face. That means it's looking for geometry inconsistencies between the original placement of that wall and what exists behind it now, the balloon. So I hit update to face, and now the hole's there. But wait a minute, there's the wall on the other side. It wasn't consistent, right? So same thing, we're going to select that other wall, right, the interior wall, update to face. Oh, wait a minute, I might have to pan around. Okay, select that wall, update to face. The hole is there now. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. I love that you can do this. Now, you're rightfully going to say, but wait a minute, now you need a window here, 100%. So what I'm going to do is in the floor plan, I'm going to draw a regular storefront wall, right? And I'm going to show you how to manipulate that. So, okay, so we're going to do no grid, and then I'll add a mullion in the middle. And then it can be as tall as I want it to be. It doesn't really matter, but I'm gonna put it right in the center. Okay, and so see where that lives? And I look back at that thing in 3D, and then, well, I don't see it though. I didn't isolate, right? This guy, level 1. I'm just gonna make it obnoxious. I'm gonna make it like 15 feet or something. So it's clearly very tall. Okay, now look at that thing in 3D. There it is. Brilliant, thanks. Okay, select that thing, and this is a very, very cool feature about this tool. I could, push it this way and push it this way and pull it down and pull it up and measure all that. but there's a much, much faster way, and it is edit profile. And this works on any wall type. So I'm going to edit the profile, and I'm going to change that line work from that to this. And then I'm going to clean that line work up because it has to be a closed polygon, right? And then delete the exterior because I don't need those lines anymore. Hit OK. It's going to delete those mullions, and instead it moved those mullions to the interior, and now we have a window. Brilliant. Okay. Now, I think something you're realizing, and something I'm realizing, is the window isn't quite big enough because the mullions aren't big enough. So I'm going to choose this curtain wall, which is no grid, and I'm going to duplicate it and just call it window. Okay. And then I'm going to change the mullion size from 2.5 by 5 to 2.5 by well, actually, let's just measure that. Let's see what that distance is. So using the measuring tape at the top, I'm going to measure this edge to that edge. What does that say? 7.5. Okay, so I'm going to make these 8 inches. Now, you can't just grab these things and, well, actually, let's say you can. So I'm going to edit this type. Yeah, no, see, I can't duplicate it, so it won't let me do that. So what I'm going to do is go back down to families and look for curtain wall system mullions, and then you'll see one called rectangular. There's a bunch. See one more called 2 by 5. I'm going to duplicate that. I'm going to change it to 2.5. Oops, rename it 2.5 by 8. Okay, and then I'm going to change the type properties so that it is 8 inches and not 5, and hit apply and OK. Now, this didn't change yet because I haven't associated it. So I'm going to choose this model, which is no grid. Actually, I want that to be, oh, I thought I created one called window. I'll duplicate that again. Window, and then change the mullions from 2 by 5 to the new one I just created, 2 by 8. Sorry, give me 1 second. Still working on it. Apply and OK. Boom. Now it fits beautifully. The only thing to tweak or change here is that I need a center mullion because I think in that photograph there was one. Nope, it's just a single piece of glass. I do know the exact dimensions of it though now. It is in fact 1 panel width. So it is 6 feet, what looks like 18 inches. So now let's change the dimension of it. So how do we do that? Okay, well, my favorite tool is the align tool. So I'm going to use the align and pick that edge. Make sure I'm getting the, oh, that changed the, that's not what I wanted. I got to change both the opening and the window. So that's a little bit more complicated, but it's okay. So choose the window, edit profile, align to this grid, align to this grid, and clean that up. So now my window's right. I need to open the mass, edit that. That's okay. And change this opening, or sorry, the void form to reflect the new window opening, or sorry, the new dimension. So I'm going to align again, that tool, click, align, click, and actually, you know what I want to know is this opening 18 inches? So I'm going to hover over the mass opening, and I don't see a vertical value, so maybe I can do it this way. Let's try it this way. Yeah, 18 inches, beautiful. So that was what do they call that? Serendipity. All right, so I'm going to update this face, select that interior partition, update that face, and now I have a glazed opening in a stone-faced wall that is pretty darn close to the photograph. Again, without just eyeballing things. So, in summary, what we have learned about, let me turn mass. Oh, mass is already off. I'm going to turn roofs back on. We have learned about the massing tool. We've learned about the curtain system tool and how to use that in the vertical cap of a mass. We've learned about creating a new curtain, a new curtain wall, which is the one to represent the travertine wall that we modeled earlier from freeform modeling. And then I've shown you how to edit the mass to create openings, create a storefront, edit the storefront profile to create that matches that opening, and creates a glazed window and a travertine wall. That is a lot to do in a short amount of time. So hopefully this was informative. I'm expecting my students to replicate all the walls in travertine, except for the ones that aren't travertine, they're onyx or whatever, but those should still be the same. I think they're the same general proportions of 3 foot by 6 foot. So for my students, please execute all the walls to be travertine. For the rest of you, hopefully you enjoyed and learned something else new about Revit. Have a good one.